Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 16 of Your Life Projectized. Today, I have another special guest. And before I introduce him, I want to tell you so today's episode is called Heart Attack to Comeback, the Ultimate Project. And as you could probably tell based on the name, this is going to be a healthcare focused episode. But again, we are going to sprinkle in some project management also, which, and as for any of you who are aware, healthcare is not only my passion, it's an industry that I've worked in for many years. So this episode is extra special to me. So that said, I'm going to introduce our next guest, Phil Barth. And Phil, I'm going to pass it over to you. Why don't you introduce yourself and let the audience know a little bit about you?
Okay, so as you stated, Phil Barth, the I hate to spoil the surprise, but I had a heart attack. So I kind of gave that away in the title, didn't I? I, I am a retired IT project manager and now full-time keynote speaker. So I speak on two subjects.
Mm-hmm.
One is stress management, which is very much a health kind of topic, and the other is goal achievement. So and basically I talk about I use a lot of rubber chickens because they're so much fun, and I talk about the chickens that are holding you back, and in stress management a lot of times it's external factors that are
Yeah.
holding you back, that are getting in your way, and what do you do about that? With goal achievement and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes project management, it's the things inside of you that can hold you back.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
those are the two areas that I talk about, and they're both very much tied to your personal health.
Oh, for sure. And Phil, I'm really glad that you mentioned stress management because I think as you and I can both relate, especially as and so sorry, I had to shut that light off because I saw that there was a glare on your glasses. So
Oh no, it's not you, it's me. See?
okay,
It's my
okay.
ring light.
Got it, got it. Okay. Okay, so I can turn that back on. Um,
Yes, I'll be better.
so and I'm really glad, Phil, that you mentioned stress management because I know personally I know again speaking about myself, every project manager that I've spoken to, and just I think people in general, right? Stress is such a big part of our lives, and especially
Mm.
in today's world where we are just go, go, go.
Right.
So really glad that you brought that up because I definitely want to touch on that a little bit later in the episode. And so so for everyone who's listening, so not only is Phil a keynote speaker, you are a published author and you are a PMP certified project manager, which is a huge accolade within in itself.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Of
All of
course.
that is true.
So, so Phil, and I know, right, talking about your health, and I know that can be very personal, and I'm
Mhm.
sure there are a lot of folks here who can relate, because every one of us at some point or another has probably been a patient. We've been to a doctor's office, we've been to a hospital. So, can you share, Phil, with the audience, can you share the story of how, the heart attack that you experienced, how did you navigate your recovery, like a project manager?
Yeah, so it was 2015. I
Okay.
had a heart attack at summer camp. I was at summer camp with Boy Scouts with my youngest son. And I started feeling bad and worse. And eventually, I think it was Thursday, I my blood pressure went straight down and went to the nurse. And my wife called because I'd been telling my wife my symptoms. And the nurse said, "Give me your phone." And she said, "Look, if this is my husband, I send him to I call 911." So they sent me to the hospital, ran a bunch of checks, and they told me, "Yeah, you had a heart attack." And they said it was a small one. And I thought, well, if that's small, I don't ever want to have a medium. It was just,
Oh, I
it's
bet.
not good. So the next day they put in two stents. I had two arteries that were 80 and 95% blocked. And what happened after that was, there was two pieces to this. I would say the whole heart attack recovery is like a program of projects because your goal is to get to healthy. But
Yep.
that's not a project. That's a whole bunch of projects. So there was the physical piece that I had to deal with, and there was also the stress piece because my doctor said, look, you need to do a better job of stress management. And it never occurred to me that I needed to do that. And he set a goal. He said, every 3 months, I want you to take 1 week off and unplug. And I said I would do it. And my wife was in the room, so I had to do it. So, so that was one thing. Every 3 months we had to plan what our little 1 week off was going to be. And
Yeah.
at first it was very small because I was still recovering. The first time was just a little, it was a staycation, a little
Yeah.
trip to the zoo and so on. On the physical side, there were little individual projects. Like, I want to be able to walk a mile. Well, there's a lot of pieces to that. I need to go through therapy. I need to check with my doctor. I might need to get new shoes. And once I completed that project, then it was, I want to run a mile. And eventually it was, I want to swim a mile, which that was the final thing. The final goal was I wanted to be healthier
Yeah.
than ever before. And I had never done much swimming in my life. So that was a huge project to figure out how to get from being able to maybe swim across the pool to a full mile. And it was important in that I knew when I completed that project, I could say, okay, physically, I am where I need to be.
Absolutely. And Phil, and I again, I love this topic, especially because, right? So I don't know if I've ever shared with you, but I've dealt with my own health battles, and the keynotes talk that I give. Also, it talks about how I used project management principles and methodologies to manage those series of health events, right, in my personal life. But I always talk about how project management truly can be applied to every aspect of our lives, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. And there was a risk management component too.
yep.
One of the things, one of my projects I wanted to take on was I wanted to start weightlifting again, and I told my cardiologist that I wanted to get back to being able to bench press 200 pounds, which I hadn't done since I was very young. And yeah, that was my cardiologist reaction. He kind of laid out the risks for somebody who had two stents for doing that kind of weightlifting, and so we canceled that one. I decided to effectively manage that risk by not doing that one. But yeah, and I know you and I have talked out in Las Vegas when we first met about your health challenges and mine, and yeah, project management principles are the way to handle those things.
Yeah, it's so funny or you're talking about the weightlifting and the bench pressing. So I think the most recent or so back in 2016, I had a chemotherapy-based stem cell transplant. And
Hmm.
which is right, it's very intense. And I told the doctor, or it was a hematologist, I told my hematologist at the time, I said, so after this, I have a goal. And he said, well, what's that goal? I said, within a year, I want to compete in my very first bodybuilding competition. And he smiled and he said, how about we take a break and maybe ease into it slowly. I will be the first to say I can be a bad patient at times in that I'm very uh fiery and I'm not combative at all, but when I want to do something, I want to do something. So
Sure.
so yeah, I completely relate to that. But you are such a good patient. You
Well,
listened.
in that case, I had a lot of respect for my cardiologist, and when he outlined what could happen to a heart, I was like, okay. So, did you do the bodybuilding contest?
I did. I did.
Awesome.
I did. I got a trophy. So it was my very first bodybuilding competition. I got fourth place. And the reason, honestly, the reason I wanted to do the competition in the first place was because I wanted my own comeback story, right? And I wanted to show other patients who have, whether they were going through MS, a stem cell transplant, a heart attack, whatever the case may be. I wanted to show them you are still capable of doing anything that you set your mind to. And so honestly, that is the reason I took the stage.
That is so cool. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. And likewise, and eventually you will get to your goal as well of doing what did you say, benching 250?
200, and no, I don't want to blow out another artery. So
That was
I,
probably smart.
well, and he said there are other ways to gain strength, and that's exactly what I did.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I am all for pushing the limits, and I have seen people do incredible things. But when
Yeah.
it's when a medical doctor tells me this could kill you, I find and here's another way to get that same physical strength. I listened.
Very important. Yeah, no, that's a great tip. And I'm in agreement with you. I think that is something that you don't want to take a risk on. So
Exactly.
completely agree. And so Phil, you just so we talked a little bit right just now about stress management. And and as I mentioned, I think every single project manager that we know has dealt with stress at some point in their project, in their career.
Mhm.
I think we're constantly right battling stress, whether it's meeting stakeholder expectations or just the stress of the project, dealing with other vendors. So what are some key stress management techniques? 'Cause I'm really interested to hear this because I definitely want to see if I can apply them to my own life. What are some techniques that, during your recovery that really helped you achieve, I'm going to say, inner peace?
That's a good way of putting it. The the first one I kind of fell into. So I talked about we had the staycation and we went to the zoo and the next day art museum and so on. After day one, when we were at the zoo,
Hmm.
I got on Facebook and I printed out I typed out these are the great things that happened today. Just a list of things that were really cool. Hang on just one second.
Sure.
Alexa, stop.
Doesn't Alexa know we're
You know
shooting a
what?
podcast?
I should I should have disabled her.
No, 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 no. It's okay. This is real life. These things
This is
happen.
yeah. The funny thing is that when I was in my IT career, I worked with a lady named Alexis.
Uh-huh.
She went off every time I talked to her. It thought I was saying her name, the assistant thing. All right, so where was I? So I put it on Facebook. I said, these were the great things that happened today. You know, we went to the zoo, we saw baby cheetah, we saw the gorillas, we had a picnic in the car, etc. And everybody liked it.
Yeah.
And if you're on Facebook and people give you likes, it's like, oh, fantastic. I got to keep doing this.
They
So the
love
next day
me.
I talked about the art museum
Yeah.
and it just kept going. And I noticed the more I looked for what was good,
Yeah.
the better I felt and the lower stress I was. And I didn't even mean to, but I was programming my brain to look for this is what's good in life. And I tell people, just seek what's good in life and turn down the bad. There is no shortage of bad news in the world.
Yeah.
And if you're on social media getting all that bad news and hate, just turn that down and look for what's good, and it will lower your stress. That started in early 2016, and I've been doing it ever since. So it's been over 8 years that I've been putting out on social media. These were the great things that happened today.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And I think that a shift in perspective, right? And the way we view the world, because, perception is reality, right? And if we're always, to your point, right, we're always focusing on the negative, and there is a lot of negative, right? But there's also a lot of good. So I think if we focus on the good and turn off our phone and turn off social media and turn off all this news, I think
absolutely.
it could definitely alleviate, I think, a lot of stress.
Absolutely. That was the big one. The second big one is I halfway through halfway on this journey, I read about a study that his name is Sean Aker, and he's got a
Okay.
great TED talk on the science of happiness. Love that TED talk. ACHOR for anybody who wants to see his TED talk. But he and his wife did a study on how people started their day. And so they split participants into two groups. And the one group started their day with bad news. 3 minutes, just 3 minutes of bad news. So it's probably just turn on the news. I don't think they specifically found bad news to tell them. You just turn on the news, it'll be bad.
Yeah.
The other group started their day with 3 minutes of solution focused news.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, they asked the groups, how was your day? And the group that started their day with 3 minutes of bad news was 27% more likely to report having a bad day.
Wow.
So the way you start the day is really going, and 3 minutes is all it takes, is really going to set you up for success or failure. So I start every day, I call it ABCD. A is some positive affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make a difference in the world, just rotating positive affirmations. Okay, I'm up, I say them. B is I read a book, something positive. It can be a Bible, it can be any kind of spiritual text, something that uplifts you. I do that because if I don't read first thing in the morning, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
C is coffee because I can't start my day without a little caffeine. And D is dogs. So we have two dogs, and I love dogs, and dogs are like the most positive creatures in the world. So, you wake up and they see you and they're like, oh, you're the best person in the world. I've seen you for hours. And you feed them dog food and they're like really happy and dog food. Oh, thank you. And no matter what you do, dogs are positive. So if I start my day that way, I am much more likely to have a lower stress and happier day.
I love that, and such great tips. Such great tips. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I actually, again, I think I need to implement some of these in my own life. And so, Phil, so in thinking about, so because you, in my eyes, you definitely are, you're a success story, right? Not only are you a success story, you're a survivor. And then you are just such a kind individual, and just such a pleasure to be around. And
Thank
so
you.
of course, no, and then I mean every word. And so Phil, so when talking about, right, your personal journey, right, your experience, with your heart attack, with your recovery, how have these maybe shaped, or maybe even transformed, maybe, how you and have your professional life, as well as your personal life?
So professionally, I didn't even realize they were changing me right away. But professionally, I got back to my IT job and got a phone call from my boss and said, "Hey, that project that you recommended, I had this app that I thought we could build to help with safety."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Yeah, we canceled it while you were out." And I said, "Oh, okay." He said, and he told me why a little bit. I said, "Oh, okay." He goes, "That all you're gonna say?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, that isn't how you used to be." I mean, I used to fight it, yell about it, and everything. And he said, "What happened?" And I'm thinking, have you not been paying attention for the last half a year? I had a heart attack. I just said, "Hey," I'm not going to say his name because what if he's watching?
Sure, sure.
I
Yeah.
said, I said, "Hey, Mr. Boss, the heart attack has changed my perspective. And if you're telling me people didn't want the project, then we're not going to do it. We'll do something else."
Yeah.
And why am I going to? And boy, I was good at really stressing out, yelling, and complaining about things I had no control over. Complain about the weather. Why? I didn't. What good is that going to do? Complain about traffic. Again, if I'm using my map and it's telling me the right way to go, no point in complaining. And it wasn't until I went through that and started looking for positives that really started to sink in.
Oh, sure. Definitely. And I think that is such an important point, a point that you're bringing up, just looking for the positives. So I have a list, and I forget which, so I've, in the public speaking space, I've worked with a lot of different mentors, and I can't remember who it was that said, write down three positive things that happened to you in the day, right? And then, set a time, whether it's in the week or in the month, that you go back and you look at all those positive things that happened, and it'll completely transform, I think, your attitude about things, your outlook on life, and make you realize that, what, a lot of good does outweigh all the negativity that we're constantly surrounded by.
Yeah, I do the exact same thing. That's what that great things is. And then once a month, I review them. And I have this little spreadsheet because I'm a nerd. And I have the spreadsheet and I write down, these were the greatest of the great things that happened that month.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and so talking about your book, so Phil, so admittedly, I have not yet had a chance to read it, but I know that the book resonated with a lot of readers. I know, because I've seen some of the reviews, for your book. So can you share, the unexpected joys and maybe the hidden treasures that you wrote about, like banana milkshakes. Oh gosh, I can't even speak. Banana milkshakes, rummage sales, and can you speak a little bit about that and,
Sure.
and their significance maybe in your journey?
Yeah. So what about 2 years into finding the great things, my wife said, you ought to write a book about this. And so what I did was I went back to Facebook and took all the lists of great things,
Mm-hmm.
took selected ones and put them in the book and then explained them. Told the story behind it, grouped them. So, great things around the holidays, great
Mm-hmm.
things around um, a family trip, dad jokes. There's a whole section of dad jokes. One of the reviews said some of the dad jokes were lame. They just don't get me. To each their own, right? And I think I say in the dad jokes section, look, if you don't like dad jokes, just go to the next chapter. I get it. But what happened was, as I wrote this and as I went through the journey of collecting all of this,
Hmm.
I realized that the same things were happening over and over again and being
Yeah.
listed over and over again. For example, banana milkshakes. So frozen bananas, a little bit of skim milk or 2% milk, and I'm missing the important one, frozen yogurt. Blend them up. That's it. It's so easy, and they're delicious. And I made them for my wife and kids, and sometimes the kids would want a different flavor. And you just have a little milkshake, and it's this family moment.
Yeah.
And it kept showing up, and that's kind of the point of the book is, you can see what I'm doing, and then think about your own life and what are those little things that make the difference. And don't go out and say, if I can't climb Mount Everest, it's not a great day, right? There's going to be little things, and so many of them. Rummage sales. We went to a rummage sale and bought a shirt or whatever.
Yeah.
Just silly little things. They can be big, but so many times if you just appreciate those little things, it lowers your stress and makes you happier.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's funny, Phil. So, usually when I'm waking, I'm not a morning person. Everyone who knows me knows this. I'm just not. I never have been. Uh, when I wake up in the morning and I'm dreading getting out of bed, and I'm like, I'm grudgingly getting out of bed. I think I get to have coffee today. That is what motivates me to say, okay, let me get out of bed because I get to have a cup of coffee. And I know that's so silly,
I
but
love
that,
that.
right?
I love that. Absolutely.
And so, Bill, so also, I kind of want to go back to, talking a little bit about the project management. You and I, when we were speaking, you mentioned a diaper story.
Yes.
And I definitely
Okay.
want to make sure we talk
Oh,
about that.
absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things I talk about, and it's in my stress management keynote, and the other one as well, the goal achievement. Humor is very important, and
Yeah.
I will stop and just show pictures of things that I found that are funny. And one of the funny stories that I like to share, I talk about stepping out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
This goes back, I don't know, several years. I was working with the group that produced a product called Fluff Pulp, and that is one of the big ingredients that goes into diapers.
Okay.
And by diapers, I mean baby diapers, adult incontinent products, you name it. It's absorbent. And so we were sitting in a meeting, and we had all of the heads of the business, and I was their IT support. So the marketing head, the product development head, the people in charge of sales for each of the major regions of the world, the overall salesperson, etc. And so we're sitting there, and the product development head says, I was talking with a consultant recently, and he said, how well do you know your product and your customer? And I asked him, what do you mean? And the consultant said, have you ever worn an adult diaper? Because until you wear an adult diaper, you really don't know your customer. And the head of marketing said, I have an idea. He said, do we have samples? And of course, it was the product development center. We had samples all over the place. We had every kind of sample
Yeah.
because they tested them all. And he said, yeah. He said, well, let's take a break. Let's bring in all the boxes, and then let's divide them up. And we've all got homework tonight. We're all going to wear an adult diaper,
Yeah.
adult product. Now, I was one of two people who was in the city, so I had to wear mine at home. Everybody else got to hide in their hotel and try them.
Yeah.
I had to go home and have dinner with my wife and three kids while wearing an adult diaper. And it was hilarious. The kids just thought it was so funny. Yeah, I walk in and I hold up this adult diaper, and my wife just said, "Well, I said I'd marry you for better or for worse." And so I'm sitting there in the diaper, and the kids are making all kinds of jokes like, "Hey, Dad, pass the peas," and this is going on. And then my wife says, "Do you have to actually use the product?" I said, "No, no. I just have to wear it. I'm not going to try to exceed expectations on this particular task." So what happened was I go to take it off an hour or so later, and I said, this is awful. This is uncomfortable. This is terrible. This is something I have to do for exactly 1 hour. And there are literally millions of people in the world for whom this product is a 24/7 reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so what can I do as an IT professional to help the end user of this product? And it changed my thinking. And it was hilarious. But at the same time, it was a huge learning. And we wound up coming up with an app that showed the people who manufactured the diapers how to use different kinds of pulp and use less of it. So it wasn't this big thick one. I got stuck with the big thick one because the IT guy picks last. And they were thinner diapers, which meant that, you see those ads, right, of people, I can dance, I can golf, I can take walks in my adult incontinent products. We were showing the manufacturers how to do that and how to improve the quality of life. And if you can step out of your comfort zone, learn things, and actually help another human with their quality of life, I think that's the best thing you can possibly do.
I agree, and I love that. Absolutely love that. And Phil, you pointed out something that's so important, and something that I say often, to my teams, or I've said to my teams in the past, take off your manufacturer hat, take off your IT hat, and put on your user hat.
Yes.
How would you, as a user, would you love this product? Would you want to use this product? Is this product easy to use? Is it intuitive? Does it have kinks? And I'm like, and if your answers to the first few questions is yes, great. But if yes, the other answer is yes, it does have kinks. No, it's not easy to use. Then why would you number one, put that product out there, or number two, not consider making adjustments to the product for the end user,
Exactly.
right?
Yep. I think there's two types of companies in the world: those who are trying to make their end users' lives better, and those who are going to go out of business.
Yeah,
You have to be focused on helping that person live a better life.
absolutely, absolutely. And I love that sentiment, and I'm so happy that you mentioned it. And thank you again for sharing that story. That is hilarious. When I was going through my chemotherapy-based stem cell transplant, we had to also wear diapers, by the way, adult diapers, because you're not allowed to leave the chemo room. Right. So you can't leave the chemo room. I think not every, I know every facility runs different, runs their facility and their procedures differently, but I wasn't allowed to leave the room because I was going to be in that chemo room for, I think, 4 hours straight, if I remember correctly. And anyway, I had to put on an adult diaper, and I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. So that's why this story resonated with me so
I
much.
love it.
Yeah. And so Phil, so I know we're getting to towards the end of our time together. Um, do you, Phil, so what advice, what I was going to say was, so do you have any advice, right, that you could give to, because you've already shared so many nuggets of wisdom, so much great advice, but if you could give advice to individuals and organizations that are struggling with stress, that are seeking personal growth, that are seeking to be maybe a little bit more resilient in, how they operate day to day, what advice would you want to leave them with?
So we've talked a lot about it. One of my favorite things to talk about people about how to make time for what's important. Somebody, Gary V. He goes by Gary V. He does a lot of podcasts and things like that. Somebody asked him, "Give me something to motivate me to to do what's important.
Hmm.
He looked at me and said, "You are going to die." And we all are. So you don't know how much time you have, but take that time and make time for what's important. For me, I found out that, and this is so obvious when you look at it, at work, they will be able to replace you tomorrow and get by. Your family will not. So I had to prioritize my family. And if it's learning or growth, you have to take care of yourself. Uh, and so that's what I tell people is, hey, stealing the quote from Gary Vee, you're going to die. And when that happens, are you going to regret not spending more time at work or not answering every single email or whatever? Or are you going to regret not enjoying time with your significant other, your family, your dogs, etc.?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that because I think that is absolutely so important. I think a lot of us forget, right? Especially here in the United States, that we are a go, go, go culture, right? And like as I'm from the Northeast originally,
Mhm.
Jersey, uh, and I used to work sometimes 60-hour weeks.
Mhm.
And I often did not take vacations, right? I had accrued time off for PTO and I didn't take vacations because I had this mentality back then, right? I was a lot younger. I had this mentality back then that if they talk about the company, if they see that Paramjit's not going on vacation, Paramjit's staying here and she's making sure that tasks are completed and she's a go-getter, what I didn't realize is I could be all those things while still taking vacation, and I am replaceable. I mean, luckily I was never let go from the company, but I've been let go from other companies, and again, it just reinforces what you just said, right? That we are all replaceable, and so we need to make sure we take the time, spend time with our loved ones, spend time doing what we love, spend time
Yes,
doing the things that are important to us.
absolutely. Yep. You only get so
Yeah,
much time.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, Phil. Such a great episode. And so I usually ask my guests. So if when you were a little boy and you thought about what do you want to be or what you wanted to be when you grew up, right? I know you're a public speaker, keynote speaker. I know you're a project manager and you have so many different accolades, right? I couldn't possibly list them all on this call, but what would you have wanted to be as a child if you were thinking about your future?
A baseball player.
Really?
Yeah. Um, I- and the fact that I wasn't that great at it didn't really ever enter my mind. It's like
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed the game, and so you have to find what you're skilled at,
Hmm.
what people value, and it kind of that intersection. And that's why I'm doing the speaking thing. I enjoy doing it. I've worked hard to get skilled at it. I love making people laugh, and I love hanging out with people. And it's the coolest thing in the world. I get to, and you're in that same boat. I know you've been speaking overseas. I got to speak in Belgium this year, and in Toronto and Orlando, and I get to hang out with wonderful people
Yes.
and help them. And so I didn't think about that. I don't even know that I knew that was a career when I was a kid. Uh,
Mhm.
and had I, looking back, I always loved to make people laugh. I mean, I got in trouble in elementary school for being the class clown. So maybe my subconscious was telling me, okay, you can't hit that well. Maybe you ought to try this speaker thing. And it all worked out.
Absolutely. And I love that for you because you are a great speaker. You're a phenomenal speaker. You're just a phenomenal individual.
So are you.
And thank you. Thank you, Phil. And with that, I will again thank you so much for not only being on this episode, but I want to thank you for my rubber chicken
Nice.
that you gave to me during our very first meeting. So yes, this, by the way, makes my day. So I appreciate you so very much.
You too.
Okay. Thank you.